So first things first, with this whole Trump tariff threat, the biggest thing that surprised me, and I had no idea. So if hypothetically Canada became the 51st state, we're only number 4 compared to the rest of the states as an entire country. I thought in my brain for sure Alberta would rival every other state, and Alberta doesn't even rival that. Why? I always thought Canada was, I think we're 9th largest economy in the world. Why are we so small for such a vast country with so many resources?
Well, first of all, if you ever read any academic report on the economy of Canada, it always says Canada is a small, open economy. And of course, what it's referring to is, there's 40 million people here. We are 1/10, like 90% smaller than the United States. The other big thing that's happened is you're talking about a measurement relative in economic size. I think we would be the second biggest state from a population point of view. But then we also need to realize Canada's had a lost decade. The GDP per person in Canada is the same today as it was 10 years ago. While America has had very strong economic growth, they had a V-shaped bounce back from the COVID recession. Canada hasn't. And so I think, if you're measuring it in US dollars and you're measuring it in GDP per person, Canada is becoming small fast.
So my friend made the argument, well, the population compared to the United States. But then when I looked at California, in California's economy, we have basically the same size population as California, and they're double the size of Canada's, the state. Then I thought, what are we doing? Northern Gateway, the Energy East, Keystone XL, when Germany and Japan, and I would argue that Germany and Japan are more technologically advanced than us. I would think that they would understand the so-called green energy, the pros and cons better than we would. They said, please sell us LNG. And we said, there's no business case for it. Is that what's holding our country back?
The key thing that's really holding our country back is most successful countries understand that they have to exploit what Adam Smith referred to, in the Wealth of Nations, is the idea of specialization and comparative advantages. You as a nation, we as a nation, should be finding where do we have comparative advantages in production and trade with other nations. Germany, of course, has been a precision machine tool economy and has supplied the world in precision machine tools. Japan has been a leader in electronics. America has been a leader in manufacturing and now entertainment and technology. So every country's found where they're really strong and they exploit those advantages. What's the dead obvious advantage for Canada is that we have an advantage in the production of primary materials. Somehow culturally, and I think it started with Pierre Trudeau, this is a literal quote from him, Canada has to stop hewing wood and drawing water for our neighbors to the south, and we need to join the manufacturing value-add economy. It's a very seductive line, I think, for people to say, oh yeah, with primary materials, we're not doing value-add. But that's ridiculous. The value of those resources in the ground is worth absolutely nothing. We add enormous value by using incredible technologies and resourcefulness to take those primary materials and get them into a place where somebody else can upgrade them and turn them into something valuable, but not before we turned it into something valuable where it was before worth absolutely nothing. So the fact that Canadians have not been encouraged to be extremely proud of our natural strategic advantages, the incredible resourcefulness and technology that it takes to take something that's worth absolutely nothing into something that becomes absolutely critical. The fact that we're not proud of that and exploiting that, I think, is the reason why we languish. We want to try to compete with the Americans in technology. In the end, Pierre Trudeau just turned us into a branch plant economy.
Now that there is a potential threat, there's even from the Liberals, there's like, well, maybe we should look at Energy East, maybe we should look at this. It seems very reactionary and not proactive.
The strategy that says that we're going to actually purposefully leave our resources in the ground when it is our actual real strategic advantage in the world is so counter to our own strategic interests. And I think the Trump tariff threat has just exposed the emperor has no clothes, because all of a sudden the very people that were against the oil and gas industry suddenly find that it's the only real product that they can use in a trade war with the Americans. And they have no leverage because there's nobody else to sell it to because of their own policies. It's an obvious strategic blunder. But what I'm finding a bit amazing is the hypocrisy of people saying, if Trump does this, well, we're going to use that extremely valuable oil and gas as a way of fighting back. And I'm going, what, the stuff that you just said only 3 months ago should be left in the ground? The stuff that you decided to put all of these very draconian environmental measures on to make it unprofitable to produce, the stuff that you wouldn't build pipelines so that you could have a diversity of markets and some economic strength in the world, that's the stuff that you suddenly think. And then, of course, I did a post in French on this, the Minister Joly saying, well, we'll cut off the oil and gas to the United States. I'm going, Minister, you live in Quebec. Do you know where you get your oil and gas from? It's not from us, because we can't get it there. You rely for over half of your hydrocarbons and 25% of your total energy on oil and gas imports from the United States. I'm going, we're going to cut it off to the United States? Well, they'll just cut it off to you, Minister.
You are one of the most successful activists, even though you're not as flashy as the rest of us, you're not as out there. And for years now, you've held it all together. Why is this so important for you?
I started with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and where I'm at now with this Modern Miracle Network and trying to network other like-minded people together is that I just feel that the discussion in the public square was and is too one-sided, and that it absolutely is necessary for a healthy democracy and a healthy society that we have a robust discussion in the public square. I will say, you know what, NGOs, you deserve a shout out. You identified a problem. There's only one atmosphere. There's going to be 10 billion people. You've identified the problem. I think that just because you identified the problem doesn't mean you should own the conversation one-sided. Let's let the engineers and the people that actually run these systems come up with the solutions for these problems. And they've now gone, no, we're going to block that. And I think that's a big problem in the conversation. And I definitely believe best energy in its best place. Windmills have had incredible advances. Solar's had incredible advances. I hope we're going to see a renaissance in nuclear. But let's be clear, there's few industries with more rapid advances in technology than the oil and gas business too. This idea that it's sort of yesterday's industry. Well, yesterday it was. But today, it's today's industry, and believe me, tomorrow it'll be tomorrow's industry. And I just think we just haven't had the proper conversation. Of course, I'm in the industry, and so I want to defend and I want people to understand it. But for me, it really is more about the health of society. I'm a conservative. I have lots of friends who are liberals. I think the healthy society is those people who say, look, let's not be gambling on stuff. Let's only do what works. Well, this has to be balanced by people saying, hey, we can do better. Let's try new things. But we can't turn it over to just one group and let it wind up and stagnate. We can't turn it over to the other group where they're now trying crazy things like, oh yeah, we'll shut down the Gateway pipeline. Like this was craziness, right? So we need that healthy debate. We have to have where liberals and conservatives, progressives and conservatives are in a healthy discussion so that we get that balance of we do try new things, but we also make sure that we don't give up what works.